Welcome back to the channel, my spooky friends. Tonight, we're diving headfirst into the abyss of agricultural horror. Forget your idyllic farm-to-table fantasies. These places are fertilized with fear. We've got 3 bone-chilling tales from the heartland that will make you think twice before you set foot in another barn. So, lock your doors, grab your teddy bears, and settle in as we explore the terrifying true stories of those who dared to trespass on haunted grounds. Our first story takes us deep into the isolated backroads of rural America, where weathered wood and rusted metal are the only things standing between you and the endless cornfields. It's here we find our first farmhouse, desolate and decaying, forgotten by time and most likely by God himself. Local legend whispered of strange occurrences, whispers that piqued the curiosity of 4 friends, eager for a taste of adventure. They decided to investigate, drawn to the mystery like moths to a flickering porchlight. As they approached the dilapidated structure, an unnatural silence hung in the air, thick and heavy, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Undeterred, they pushed forward, their flashlights cutting through the gloom as they stepped across the threshold into the farmhouse. The air inside was stale and thick with dust, the only evidence of life the scurrying of unseen creatures. The floorboards groaned under their weight, each creak echoing like a mournful cry in the stillness. They explored each room, their curiosity battling with a growing sense of unease. The remnants of forgotten lives clung to the shadows, a child's doll lying discarded in a corner, a tattered family portrait hanging askew on the wall. As they ventured deeper into the house, the feeling of dread intensified. The temperature plummeted, sending chills down their spines. One of the friends, a girl named Sarah, swore she saw a figure move in the periphery of her vision, a fleeting glimpse of something dark and undefined. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence. Sarah stumbled back, her eyes wide with terror, pointing to a spot at the end of the hallway. There, for a split second, they all saw it, a tall, gaunt figure, its eyes glowing an eerie red in the darkness. Panic seized them. They scrambled back the way they came, tripping over their own feet in their haste to escape. Our next story takes us to a seemingly picturesque farmhouse, nestled amidst rolling hills and vibrant green pastures. But beneath the idyllic facade lay a sinister secret, a darkness that seeped into the very foundation of the house, poisoning the land and its inhabitants. The family who purchased the farmhouse, the Thompsons, were initially charmed by its rustic appeal, but soon, strange occurrences began to plague their lives. Objects would move inexplicably, lights flickered erratically, and whispers seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The family patriarch, John Thompson, initially dismissed these incidents as tricks of the wind or old house settling. But as the phenomena grew more frequent and intense, a knot of unease began to tighten in his gut. One evening, as I sat by the fireplace reading a book, I felt a cold draft despite the fire roaring in the hearth. I looked up, my gaze drawn to the rocking chair in the corner of the room. To my astonishment, the chair began to rock back and forth as if propelled by an unseen hand. Fear coiled in my stomach. I had tried to rationalize the strange events, but this was undeniable, unexplainable. The house was alive, and it was not friendly. He shared his concerns with his wife, Mary, who initially hesitated, torn between her love for their home and the growing sense of dread that permeated the air. But the house was relentless. The disturbances escalated, becoming more sinister.
One night, I woke up screaming, claiming that a shadowy figure had been standing over my bed, its eyes glowing menacingly in the darkness.
Then came the accidents. John tripped on the porch steps, his fall resulting in a broken leg. Mary burned her hand severely on the stove, the pain searing through her flesh despite the seemingly low heat. Each incident chipped away at their sanity, their once happy home transformed into a prison of fear. Desperate, they sought answers, delving into the history of the farmhouse. They uncovered a dark past, a legacy of tragedy and despair. The previous owners had met with untimely and gruesome ends, their deaths shrouded in mystery and whispered rumors of a curse. Armed with this chilling knowledge, the Thompsons realized they were not merely dealing with a haunted house, but a cursed one. The land itself seemed to be infected with a malevolence that fed on their fear and despair. They decided to leave, to flee the clutches of the cursed farmhouse before it claimed them as its own. Our final story takes us to the heart of the American South, where a sprawling farmhouse stood sentinel over a landscape scarred by history and soaked in blood.
This was not merely a house with a few ghost stories. This was a monument to suffering, a place where the veil between the living and the dead was worn thin.
The farmhouse had once been a plantation, its fields worked by slaves who endured unimaginable cruelty. The land itself seemed to weep with the anguish of their torment, the air thick with the weight of their suffering.
It was little wonder, then, that the farmhouse became a hotbed of paranormal activity, a spectral battleground where the echoes of past atrocities played out with terrifying regularity.
The current residents, a young couple named Jake and Emily, had purchased the property at auction, unaware of its sinister legacy. They were drawn to its faded grandeur, its potential for restoration. They were woefully unprepared for the horrors that awaited them.
From the moment they moved in, they were met with an oppressive atmosphere, a feeling of being watched, scrutinized by unseen eyes. Whispers followed them through the halls, disembodied voices speaking in languages they didn't understand.
Objects moved on their own, furniture overturned, doors slamming shut with bone-jarring force. But it was the apparitions that truly terrified. Shadows flitting at the edge of their vision, fleeting glimpses of men, women, and children, their faces etched with pain and despair.
They seemed to be trapped, reenacting the horrors they endured in life, their tormented souls unable to find peace.
One night, Emily awoke to a blood-curdling scream. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding, and saw Jake standing by the window, his face ashen, his eyes wide with terror. He was mumbling incoherently, pointing at the fields beyond the house.
Emily followed his gaze and gasped. In the moonlight, she could see figures moving through the fields, dozens of them, their forms shimmering, translucent. They were dressed in rags, their bodies emaciated, their faces contorted in silent screams.
The plantation slaves, their torment echoing through time, their anguish palpable. Emily watched in horror as the spectral procession moved towards the house, their eyes burning with a cold, otherworldly light. Jake and Emily huddled together, paralyzed by fear as the ghostly figures surrounded the house.
The air grew frigid, the stench of decay filling their nostrils. They could hear the rattling of chains, the crack of whips, the anguished cries of the tortured souls.
The couple realized they were in grave danger. This was not a haunting, it was a reckoning. The spirits of the plantation were restless, their anger and pain reaching a fever pitch. They were trapped, and they blamed the living for their suffering.
As the spectral siege intensified, Jake and Emily made a desperate pact. They would not leave the house. They would face the horrors head-on. They would acknowledge the suffering of the past, bear witness to the atrocities committed on that land.
They stood in the center of the parlor, the heart of the house, and spoke to the darkness. They acknowledged the pain, the anger, the injustice. And that, my friends, concludes our journey into the heart of haunted farmhouses. These chilling tales remind us that some places hold on to their pasts, their stories etched in sorrow and fear. If you found yourself captivated by these tales of terror, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more spine-chilling content. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a descent into the darkness. Until next time, sweet dreams. And be careful if you ever find yourself near an old farmhouse after dark.